Today's video is sponsored by Thrive Market, who's on a mission to make healthy living easy and affordable for everyone. More on them coming up. Today's video is brought to you by Thrive Market. If you've never heard of Thrive Market or you just don't really understand how it works, Thrive Market is a membership-based online grocery store. Their mission is to make healthy living easy and affordable for everyone. And it truly does. You can even filter by your diet and your values of eating on their website, whether you're gluten-free or vegan, paleo. They have so many different options, so you can kind of customize your own online grocery store. And they have free shipping over $49. So it's really affordable. You can even get free shipping for frozen products over $120. So if you're looking for some of these products that you can't seem to find in your normal grocery stores, trust me, I go through that all the time. I'm always looking for specific products or non-toxic products, and Thrive Market has it all, and they have it at a great affordable price. So you're gonna save money. I know I did when I placed my order this time, and I know you will too. A lot of times the reason that we don't make healthy food choices is because we live in a food desert where it's really tricky to get good quality healthy food at an affordable price. And maybe you're like me and live in a small town. Whenever I'm trying to find healthy groceries, I have to go to one of the big cities. I'm kind of sandwiched in between. I'm always checking my ingredient labels and trying to recommend you guys the best products, and Thrive Market makes it really easy to do that because they have banned over 800 ingredients that are normally found in your regular grocery store. So it kind of takes a lot of the effort out of shopping because you know it's going to be good, high quality food. You don't have to worry about all those sneaky little ingredients. There are two different memberships you can use to shop Thrive Market. So you can either do their month-to-month membership, or you can save and do their yearly annual membership, and it comes out to only $5 a month. So you're gonna save that money anyway. If you've been hesitant to try Thrive Market, now's the time. They gave me a great offer for you guys, so you can use my link down below or go to thrivemarket.com/healthy Elizabeth, and they're gonna give you 30% off your first order plus a free gift that's valued up to $60. I'll have all that linked down below for you so you can check that out. And thank you so much to Thrive Market for sponsoring today's video. Now let me show you what's in my Thrive box. So now let's do a little Thrive Market haul, and I'm going to show you what I got in my box, and I'm going to tell you why I bought them as well, because I know that helps if you're trying to figure out what kind of healthy things to even buy. It's nice to know why to buy it. So the first thing I got is a little bit of loose leaf white tea. This is sourced ethically and it's regeneratively grown, and it's hard to find good quality loose leaf teas, especially that are sourced ethically. White tea is full of health benefits and antioxidants, and I think it's even great for blood pressure, a few different things like that. I love white teas. I'm a tea klepto, so I'm gonna add this into a little jar today and probably enjoy a cup of that this evening. So I got white tea, really good loose leaf teas. Those are always great. Sprouted seeds. This is just like a salad topper, and I love having stuff like this that's easy to throw into a salad because it just makes getting those things we forget about, like nuts and seeds that are so good for you in so many different ways, really easy. I don't even have to do anything. They're already flavored. I got Italian herb. I thought I could even sprinkle some of these on Caesar salads because I've been loving those lately. Another thing that I bought is some organic coconut milk, and I know you can find this at other stores, but the ingredients on the Thrive Market coconut milk are by far the best. Anytime I buy them from other grocery stores, they usually have gums in them and just added ingredients you don't need, and so it's something I use all the time. I'm going to show you guys a recipe in a little bit actually, but I put it in things like my smoothies even, and it has added gums and thickeners that I don't like, but I found theirs and it only has coconut and water. I'm definitely gonna have to stock up on these. So that's one thing I love for curries, smoothies, a million different things. The next thing I bought is something that I already buy all the time, and that is Primal Kitchen sauces. I noticed it's about half the price on Thrive Market than it is at any of my local grocery stores, so I definitely want to scoop these up. I use them all the time on chicken, beef, even salmon. I think I've tried just about every single one of their sauces, and they're delicious. The next thing I got, I'm so excited about because I've been out of it forever. It's been out of stock everywhere I look, and that's my Celtic sea salt. I love this salt. It's my favorite one. I prefer it to pink salt because there's more water content in it, and so your body's able to absorb the minerals better. So even though Celtic sea salt I think technically has less minerals than pink salt, your body can actually absorb them better because there's higher water content, and I love the texture of it. It's just a really beautiful salt. Something I'm always keeping in my fridge just because it's easy is some organic chicken broth or bone broth, and this one's made from pasture-raised chicken bones. So if you're in a pinch and you don't have time to make your own homemade bone broth, I always have some of this either in the fridge, in the pantry, even in the freezer. And it looks like this one's gonna be really good because it's organic and pasture raised. So it's gonna be full of the collagen and all the good stuff that we want. Something that I also buy when I can find it are soba noodles. So these are buckwheat and brown rice, just 100% whole grain noodles. And I love these for so many different recipes, but they can be a little tricky to find. And when I do find them, they're usually twice the price. I'm telling you, I was so surprised by the prices at Thrive Market. They're truly really great. So I bought 2 of these and I'll be making something with that soon. So delicious. And because my family is eating more plant forward right now because we're in a fast for Lent, I picked up some organic rice vinegar. I've been using rice vinegar lately to make homemade sushi. Me and the kids will all kind of get around the table and lay everything out, and we'll make our own version of homemade sushi rolls. And for sushi rice, you have to use rice vinegar in it. And that is the one thing I've been looking at in my pantry and trying to find an organic version of it, and I can't find it at any of my grocery stores, and I found it at Thrive Market. So now I'm gonna make our sushi rice with an organic version. The last 2 things, because Thrive Market is more than just a grocery store, they have non-toxic beauty and cleaning products, and they got me on a couple things. So one of them are silicone stretch lids. So I am not a huge fan of plastic wrap or foil. I pretty much only use unbleached parchment paper. And so I scooped these up. I've been looking for something like this for a really long time. And it just helps to cut back on waste. So you can use these little lids. Oh, they come with different sizes. I love this because I always have mixing bowls that are different sizes that I want to cover. And so you can use these and stretch them whatever bowl or glass you want to store in the fridge, and then you don't have to worry about plastic wrap. Last thing I got is a cleaning product. I love all natural cleaning products. Usually a lot of the time the scents I just cannot do. But this one, I already know I'm gonna like. This is a basil sprig sink scrub. It's by Molly Suds. I love their stuff. And this is actually exclusive to Thrive Market. I was really excited when I saw this. I love the smell of basil. My son's name is even Basil, so I thought I had to get it. And I'm gonna scrub my sink today with this and see how I like it. I feel like my sink is always full of dishes. I'm always cooking. So I think using a sink scrub like this that smells good but is still really natural is gonna be really fun to have in the kitchen.
Whenever I've been busy and out of the kitchen for a little while, there's always things that I need to come back in and kind of reset, restock, and just kind of freshen up the kitchen. So whether it's just putting salt into my salt canisters or putting foods that I buy in bulk or in little resealable packages into jars, I find that it's especially helpful to do that when you have kids, because I know a lot of times my kids will be in the pantry and they'll open things and then it gets left open. And so a lot of food will get stale that way. So I love the fact that when I put things in a special container, in a glass jar, in a canister, we're much more likely to keep that food fresher for longer because my kids are going to close the jar up, versus if they're trying to reseal one of the resealable packages on their own. It's usually really tricky for them to do. It makes it easier to see what you have in stock in your pantry and keeps from lots of little pieces and spills happening. And it also helps to have a visual prompt. That way you see what's in your pantry, you are reading the labels even subconsciously, and it makes you want to cook with those things more and use more ingredients in your cooking, which is really good for our bodies. It's good for just, keeping things fresh at home, because it's so easy to fall into patterns of cooking the same things over and over and not really cooking with new fun ingredients. So I love kind of bringing in new things, labeling my jar, even if it's just really simply with a little bit of craft tape. It makes such a difference. And it's also great for open storage. So if you have shelves in your kitchen, then it's a great thing to just buy a glass jar and you have everything out where you can easily see it. And I find it really inspiring when you're cooking. I've gone ahead and washed up some asparagus. I love cooking with what's seasonally available. So right now there's a lot of asparagus, a lot of leeks. So I just like to rinse that and then I'll snap the ends off. And then for the leeks, I'll go ahead and slice the top and the bottom off, and then I'll slice those rounds up and rinse them because they have a lot of sandy bits in them. So you always want to make sure that you wash your leeks after you cut them so you can really get all that debris off. I'm gonna be making a delicious springtime inspired breakfast quiche today that we can have over the next couple of days. You put it in the fridge and I feel like it just gets better with time. So I'm gonna make that up, but first I wanna try out my white tea that I ordered. I'm always excited to try a new tea, and a lot of you recommended doing a French press, and since I already had that, I went ahead and started using my French press for loose leaf teas, but there's so many different ways that you can brew it. But the healthiest way to brew tea is loose leaf. That way you're not heating up all those plastics that are in some of those packages and bags that tea come in. So to start making the quiche, all I did was put some butter in my skillet, and I have that over about medium heat. And we're just going to kind of get the asparagus and leeks a little bit tender. And while that happens, I'm going to put together the egg custardy part of this quiche, and I am going to put it in a homemade pie crust. And it is my absolute favorite crust on the planet. So I'm excited to share this recipe with you guys if you're in need of a good crust too. And you won't believe how easy it is to put together. So for most of my quiches, I make them a very similar way, at least the base of it, and I find that it always works really well. So I start out with 6 eggs, and then I add in a whole cup of cream, and sometimes if I don't have heavy cream in the house, I'll just use a little bit of half and half, and I have to say it works very similarly, but cream is always my preferred fat. I love it. So I'm just going to add in a little bit of salt, a little bit of garlic powder. That gives it really good flavor and helps to season the vegetables too. And then I took my asparagus and leeks off the stove, and I'm going to let those cool down before they ever touch that egg mixture. That way there's no chance of it kind of curdling and scrambling the eggs before we put it in the oven. Now on this day, I actually had to wait for my food processor to finish being cleaned in the dishwasher before I could make my pie crust for the quiche. So I'm going ahead and I'm starting some coconut milk rice that we're going to have with dinner tonight. This is a really easy recipe. It's just water, a can of coconut milk, so I'm using the one I got from Thrive Market, and then a little bit of either jasmine or basmati rice. It's such an easy recipe, but it makes for such a great base or side dish to any dinner, and it's just really creamy and delicious. And for dinner tonight, we're in Lent, so we're fasting from meat, and we try to fast from dairy, but with kids, it's a little bit hard. So we still kind of incorporate dairy and butter and things like that just to make sure they're getting good nourishment. But tonight, I'm going to make a fish and green bean dinner and serve it over that coconut milk rice. So on a baking sheet, I just put lots of green beans, some butter, some salt and pepper, and then I'm going to crush over some garlic. The fish I'm using is a wild caught mahi-mahi that I just got frozen from Costco. It's really affordable if you buy them frozen like that, especially in bulk. So I bought that, and I'm going to make them 2 different ways. So one that's a little more kid friendly, and then one for me and my husband that's a little bit more on the spicy side. At least that's what I had planned to do, but it turns out my bigger kids ended up eating the one for me and my husband anyway because they loved it. So now my coconut milk rice has come to a simmer, so I'm just going to add some salt in, and then I'll cover that and let that simmer until it's cooked and fluffy, and then I'll take it from the heat and let it sit for a little while. I'll pop those green beans in the oven and get those cooking first, and now I'm gonna make the seasoning for the fish. So this is the spicier version that I made for me and my husband, and I'm using some chipotle and adobo sauce. I'm just using about a tablespoon or two of that, and then I'm adding in a little bit of paprika. You could use smoked paprika if you have that too. Some chili powder, some garlic powder, and drizzle in a little bit of avocado oil to kind of make it into a chili paste, something like a chili crisp almost, but without the crisp. And I'll put it on the fish as kind of this smoky oil, and it helps to keep the fish moist when it's baking, and it's all around just delicious. So I take the green beans out of the oven once those are kind of partially cooked, and then I'll place my fillets of mahi-mahi on top of the green beans and season them with the chipotle oil that we made. And then the kids version I'll season with just regular sweet paprika, garlic powder, and salt and pepper, and do a little drizzle of oil over those, and then into the oven. I'm cooking this straight from frozen today, but if you're using a thawed out fish, then you can have this meal done in as quick as about 15 minutes. Fish like this cook so quickly, so I'm just gonna put this in the oven at 400 degrees. It'll probably take about 15 minutes to cook, and then at the end, I'll just run it under the broiler just to get things a little bit more browned. After the rice had been sitting with the lid on for a little while, I took the lid off and gave it a little bit of a fluff, and it's just like a really fluffy and creamy rice with such good flavor, and I loved it served with this fish. If you haven't tried mahi-mahi before, it's one of my favorite white fishes because it's a little bit meatier. It's more of a fish steak versus the kind that kind of flake apart really easily like cod or tilapia. And so when you're not eating meat, or maybe you're a pescatarian, I love fish that is just like really meaty, and it's full of good protein and just makes a wonderful meal. I loved this along with the rice and the green beans. Everything was so flavorful, but still quick and easy, and makes great leftovers as well. After dinner was cooked and my dishwasher was done running, I went and started on my pie crust so I could put the quiche in the oven and have it ready for breakfast tomorrow. So I'm using a food processor, but if you don't have one, you can do it by hand with a pastry cutter or even just a knife and some forks. You can definitely make it work. So I'm making my pie crust recipe. It makes 2 crusts. So one will go in the freezer, and then one I'll use now, and I love doing it that way. I always make 2 at a time because it's just easy, and so I can always have one ready to go whenever I need it, or if I'm making like a pot pie, then I'll use both. My standard recipe here, I start with 2 sticks of grass-fed, good cold butter, and I'll cube that up. And then into my food processor, I'm gonna put in just all-purpose flour. I like to buy that in bulk too, makes it a little bit more economical. And then this is a little bit different, but I like to use raw turbinado sugar in my pie crust, and it makes these like beautiful specks that are a little bit crunchy, and then they melt beautifully into the crust, but I think it gives it something really special. So I add in a little bit of sugar to sweeten it up, and then I season it with even more salt. I'm using salted butter, but I like to add extra salt anyway because it just adds the best flavor. Add that all into your food processor, and then you're just gonna pulse until that butter becomes like little pea-sized crumbles. It won't take long, just pulse it a few times. And then I like to get some water in a measuring cup, and I'll add a little bit of ice cubes to it and stir it together so that water is nice and cold. But the trick here is to measure your water first and then add your ice cubes. That way you're adding in the appropriate amount of water, and then I just drizzle that in while pulsing. And here's the pie crumbles. It looks a little bit dry at first, but I promise you it comes together. So I just dump it out on the counter, and then I'll start kneading it just a tiny bit with my hands. It's definitely not like a normal bread dough or something like that you really need, but you just want to press it together, almost like you would with biscuit dough. So you just press it together with your hands. You can kind of fold it over on itself a couple times, and even just the warmth of your hand starts to kind of melt that butter just a hair to where everything sticks together. So once everything's kind of in a ball and you don't have very many crumbs left on the counter, I like to cut it in half. That way I have my 2 different pie crusts, and then I'll flatten those out into discs. Now at this point, you want to chill it in the fridge for at least 2 hours is good, but sometimes I'll do an hour and it still kind of works. So if you're in a pinch, you can do that, but I definitely recommend doing 2 hours at the minimum. So just press it into a disc, and then you can wrap it in saran wrap or parchment paper and put that in the fridge, or at this point you can put it in the freezer. So you could even do what I'm going to do, which is put 1 in the fridge to use today and then 1 in the freezer and use it a different day. Or you could just put both in the freezer. So they're really handy to have on hand, and I don't make pie crust that often, so when I do, I like to make 2 of them, and then I'll just use 1 today and have 1 left over. A little trick I learned to get really nice edges on my pie crust is when you're making your disc and you're putting it inside the plastic wrap. Use the plastic wrap to help you make a perfect disc and kind of press up against the edges, because later when you come to roll it out, that actually really matters. So that's kind of my little hack to making a really nicely shaped pie crust without the edges being all wonky. They're still going to be a little bit imperfect, but I love that. But in order to get it nicely shaped and use the dough well, it's really helpful to make sure that those edges are pressed up against the plastic wrap. That's why I use my hand to kind of shape it. When I go to roll my dough out, I make sure it's nice and cold still, and I'll sprinkle a little bit of flour on my countertop, on the dough, a little bit on the dough, and also on my rolling pin. That way everything is floured, and as I roll it out, I'll move it around a little bit, because there's nothing worse than making the perfect shaped pie crust and then realizing that it's just stuck to the countertop. So I try to turn it, I'll lift it up, I'll even flip it over, and just make sure that it's going to be really easy to pick up and put in my pie dish. And to put it in the pie dish, I like to fold my crust over my rolling pin, and that way you can just plop it right into your baking dish, and it makes it really easy to transport it wherever you need it to go. Whenever I'm making just a really rustic quiche like this, I will not do anything super fancy with the edges. I'll just kind of make sure they're all a uniform thickness. That's what I'm doing here with my hands. I'm just kind of pinching it together, and then I'll take a fork and I'll kind of mash the edges of the pie crust with the fork, and it makes these really beautiful little ridges from the fork lines, and I love the way that it looks. It looks really handmade. I prefer this to crimping if it's just a savory pie, and then I think of things like fruit pies and things like that having a more decorative edge, but that's just my own personal opinion. I just think it's fun to do it this way, and I love the rustic touch it adds. So I just do that with the fork, and then this pie crust is ready to go in the oven. To make this quiche, you don't need to blind bake your crust or anything or pre-cook it. You just want to go ahead and add in all of your filling. So I'm going to start by adding in the asparagus and leeks. And you just can't have a quiche without a little bit of cheese. So today I'm using some sharp white cheddar cheese and then also some shredded Parmesan cheese. And I love the mixture of the two. They have different textures and different flavors, and I just love the sharpness in this quiche. You really want that cheesy flavor to bring this whole quiche together. This isn't really any sort of fancy technique. I just like to kind of press everything together so that the egg sinks down to the bottom of the crust, and then I'll kind of move a few pieces of asparagus to the top just so there's some greenery peeking out. It looks beautiful that way. You could even sprinkle over a little bit of fresh chives or garlic scapes if you have a garden. And then I'm gonna put this in the oven at 350, and I'll cook it for about 15 to 20 minutes until it starts getting golden brown. And then I like to loosely cover it either with a piece of parchment paper, or you can use tin foil, just so that way it doesn't get too brown on the top. And then I'll let that keep cooking until it's all the way set in the middle. I know you may be new to my channel, so if you are and you want some of these recipes from today's video, you can visit my website. I have a recipe site, healthyelizabeth.com, where you can find today's recipes and more of my other ones. They're not all on there. I try to get as many up there as my mom life allows, so you can go over there and check out some of my recipes. And I also wanted to tell you guys thank you so much for 38,000 subscribers. You guys are sharing and liking and leave me the sweetest messages and comments. I'm honestly so honored to even have you watching these videos. Just know you're deeply appreciated, and I'm so happy to be sharing these with you. I think this has to be one of my absolute favorite springtime recipes. I've been eating it almost every day for breakfast, and it is truly that good. So let me know if you try it, leave me a comment, or just send me a message. I also wanted to say thanks again to Thrive Market for sponsoring today's video. And don't forget, you can use my link down below and get 30% off your first order and a free gift up to $60.